Okay, guys, I'm back. I'm going to try and do some bass parts here. It's a little bit awkward just because the way I'm having to do this here. I'm having to monitor through my studio monitors because there's just too much latency in the headphones to try and play that way. And with these particular headphones that I'm using are running through uh, just a different sound card, I think. The problem is that these headphones have the microphone I'm using on them, so I have to keep them on my head but off my ears because the sound that's coming through these headphones is almost a second behind the actual sound as it's being played out of like the monitors or the DAW itself. Anyway, I'm set up here. I got my bass here, and I've got the bass track armed to record, and I've got the monitoring button pressed here, which is this yellow button. And I'm just going to start this and wing it. Now, I like to try and play through the whole song. Even if I make mistakes, I'll just play through it and I'll go back and patch it up later if I have to. So I think I have some basic kind of parts worked out here, but we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it'll go rather smoothly. So here we go. Okay, and there we go. And yes, there were some errors in there, in case you missed them. Now, if you'll notice, this is the waveform that I just recorded for the bass here, and it's kind of smallish. So just to make it look better, I'm gonna increase the size of it. Now this doesn't affect the sound of it in any way, shape, or form. It's just to make the waveform itself easier to see. So I come over here and I drag up, and you'll notice it gets larger. Again, that doesn't change the sound of it in any way. It's just the visual representation of the waveform. And then what I normally do here is I'll stretch out this beginning part a little bit, and I'm just going to cut off all this dead air here. First of all, bring that all the way back so that none of that is being played. And I'm even going to put a little fade here at the beginning. That's just drawing the volume up from 0 to where it's set on the fader here, from nothing to up to here. So it'd be coming from infinity, which is down here, up to there, and it just does it in the space of that little line there that's on an angle. You see those here too. I put those on all these audio guitar parts. They're actually like kind of like crossfades. They're not really crossfades, but they kind of are. And what happens sometimes if you don't put those on the beginnings or the ends of waveforms, sometimes you'll get pops and clicks. So it's always good to put those in, and they're real small. And in this case, it's actually starting and finishing that fade before the sound even starts on the bass. You can see if I zoom in here. See, here's where the waveform actually starts, right there. And so this crossfade is happening, or this fade in actually from 0 to sound is happening even before that. So it's not affecting the sound. And on these, like on these guitar parts, they're so small. Even this one's running into the waveform a little bit here, but it's literally at the sample level here. So you'd never hear that. It's like a really quick fader move. If you took the fader from 0 to whatever the point you had it that you wanted it, that's what's happening right there. Anyway, so like I'll listen back to this. Which is kind of hard to do right now, honestly. I got to take the headphones off again, or move them off my ears. Now you might be getting some crosstalk from the studio monitors, and I apologize. But the overall sound of the bass sounds pretty good here. One thing I almost always do with bass is add a compressor, and I go really easy, generally speaking, on it. Now I forgot I wanted to show you this other part. How I got my bass sound for this. Now basically, a lot of times you just go direct with a bass, but I have this thing which is part of my audio interface, which is an 11 rack, which is a physical piece of hardware that I actually plug everything into, like the guitar, the vocal mic, keyboards, all that stuff is physically plugged into that. And this is the software that comes along with that, the 11 rack software. And I just wanted to show you how I got my bass sound here. This is a preset called Classic Bass, and these are the different components that are involved in this sound, and it's pretty basic, really. Right here we have the bass amp. It's this head, which I believe is like an emulation of an Ampeg head or something. And they call it Blue Line bass here, but I think it's an Ampeg emulation. And it just has, a lot of basic settings here. You've got a gate over here which isn't engaged. Actually, the threshold is completely off. And just your basic EQ settings on there. And then it's got other things too, like speaker breakup, which I wasn't using. You can set the type of mic that's being used over here. This is I don't know what that's an emulation of. Cond 67, I'm not sure. Condenser 67. So it's not an SM57 necessarily. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just a weird name for a SM57. But you could change different mics here, off axis, on axis, how the mic is facing the speaker cone. In other words, on that, then there's also the cabinet itself. This is a 8x10 Blue Line, it says. So 8 10-inch speakers is what it's emulating there. And you have all these other things. The only other thing I run is I run a compressor on the front end too, with these settings here, which honestly, I'm not exactly sure how good this is compressing the signal going in. I haven't fooled with it enough to really, I don't know, I use it all the time just because I want some kind of compression, and this seems to be a setting that's worked for me. Now, obviously, it's not. If you look over here at the actual waveform, it's not like flat topping it. So it is a limiter, and that's what a limiter will do. Is it will literally just cut the signal at a certain volume to where it doesn't pass at all. And we might be getting some of that. Like I see a little of that right there, maybe. But for overall, it's not doing that. You can see there's still a lot of dynamics by the different thicknesses basically of this waveform. If it were just like literally just a rectangular block, that's what you sometimes see, and that's sometimes what you see often actually after the mastering phase of the entire song. It almost looks just like a rectangular block. There's no peaks and valleys like this. That's kind of the modern loudness wars, what's been happening to music. But anyway, there's other this plugin itself is very cool. It's just it's got all kinds of things. It's got distortion pedal, and not just this distortion pedal, but I can pick from a list of different distortion pedals, and they change down here. Different, they have different sounds. Emulations that's like a tube screamer emulation, I'm sure. But yeah, there's lots of different, and these aren't turned on this particular sound. The only ones that are turned on are the ones that have this yellow highlighted area. So the amp in the cab and this compressor. And it's got all these other things. Here's these are all modulation effects, chorus, flanger, and it's cool because they have the animation of the pedal, what it looks like. I dig that kind of stuff. And there's delays, more effects, like this has EQs, I believe, in it and stuff, and compressors, graphic EQs, phasers. So anything you could want for, this is a bass sound, but this is also got tons of guitar sounds in it, presets, and you can set your own. Anyway, that's what I used on the front end of the bass. And then after, in the DAW itself, I'll often use this compressor on the track. And I go for very little. I'll try to get just have it peaking somewhere around between 2 and 4 maybe. And maybe closer to 2 dBs of gain reduction. So I'm just going to visually go for that. See, right now it's off so that it's not moving at all. Then as soon as I move this, it's on. Now it's going to make the bass louder here, so I'm going to turn the output down a little. And see, when I see that needle hitting that right there is 2, and that right there is 4. So as soon as it's hitting that 2, that's all I want. I just want a little bit of gain reduction there. Try and smooth out that all bass sound. So I'm just going to go with that for now. And I'm going to listen back and try and find the mistakes now. So actually I'm going to start it over here. Listening for mistakes. What I might do, I think what I'm going to do here, and this is not the optimal way that I would do it. Normally I would just replay these parts, but just because of the somewhat limited situation here with the headphones and the latency and whatnot. Oh shoot. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. If there was any noise, I had to take the headphones off there. I had the bass tangled up in the headphones. The bass strap. Alright. I'm actually going to do, and this might be interesting in itself just to see how this can be done, but I'm going to do some cutting and pasting here, I think, when I hear errors. Rather than trying to replay the parts, it's just a little too awkward. I'm going to turn this recording off, and even that monitor doesn't need to be on now. I can also turn the monitor speakers off right there, and I'm just listening through headphones. Yeah, I hear a little bit of out of time here, possibly. Let me hear it again. Yeah, that part's just a little muddy. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to remove this whole section. I'm just going to cut it. Delete. Bam, that whole section's gone. And I will go back and put the fades in later on this, but let's hear how this next section, which is the same part. Let's see if this is in time. It is, but it's doing a slightly different line there. I want that original line, which I think maybe it's this section repeats it. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'm just going to grab this section and copy it over to where I erased that other one. So literally just highlight it there, and I'm just going to move it back to where the other one was. So yes, technically this part and this part here are identical, but you know, it's not a perfect. Again, I would like to actually replay the part, just a little too awkward right now, and for this is fine. Listening for errors again. Okay, that technically was a mistake, not what I was intending to play there, but it might work, actually. Let me hear it again. You know what? For this type of song, that might be okay. So, and sometimes, you know, these spontaneous things that maybe initially seem like mistakes can actually work. Not all the time, but occasionally. And this might be one of those cases. Let me hear it again. Now see, there's this part which is, it's still in the right key, and the rhythm I think is right. It's just I wasn't expecting this part yet, and so it kind of caught me off guard. I hit that one or two notes, and then I just stopped playing for a couple bars, for a bar and a half there. What I was thinking of maybe even keeping that first note. Let's hear it one more time. And I think I will. It's a little bit quirky and bizarre, but that's okay. I'm almost kind of going for that in this song. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to erase the dead space. So there's no just, this is just where the bass isn't playing, but there's still sound there technically. It may even be it is minuscule. As you can see, there's just a line there, but I just like to be neat and tidy, so I'm just going to go in there and erase that part as much as possible with the neat and tidy. So I just erased the part where the bass wasn't playing there. So as you can see, there's some just dead space, if you will, at the end here. But I'm actually going to actually leave that part in here because I don't know if I should try and explain this now, but I always like to leave about 3 seconds at the end of every song, just because that naturally, like if you eventually put these songs into a media player, like Windows Media Player, and then want to burn a CD, then at least they have that 3-second gap, and the songs don't like immediately start back to back. That can be a problem. And the way I often do that is just let a track like this bass part with nothing on it play for another 3 seconds at the end of the song. So like here, the end of the song is 3:24, 23. Really, I'm not worried about those last two numbers, but if I can get to like 3:27, 3:28, that would be about a 3-4 second gap. So let's see where that is. That's right about there. You see when I put the timeline there, it says 3:28. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drag this bass track out to there. So now when I mix down and bounce this down to a regular wave file like you would play on a CD, it'll have this gap because it recognizes this as something that was recorded, even though technically from here on there's absolutely nothing there. From here where there's just that purple line, that's real quiet. Like if I solo this, you probably won't even hear anything. Hear that? Or that absence of anything? That's the bass track. There's literally like nothing there. There's not even a noise floor like you would have on an analog machine, which is, the tape passing over the head or whatever. There's on digital there is no noise floor. That's why well, actually there can be a noise floor, and how the noise floor is created is what I was talking about before when I was talking about how I cut on these guitar tracks, how I do this high pass and cut out this bottom end, because the noise floor in digital is often created by, or can be created by, just a lot of stuff you don't want, like the sound of an air conditioner coming through a vocal microphone and causing some low end rumble, something like that, or just the or even like this low end on this guitar part, which really isn't needed in this kind of song. Like on a heavy metal song or something, maybe you'd want more low end, possibly. But on a song like this, it's not. You don't need it. So, yeah. In any case, the noise floor is different in digital than it was in analog, and that's why it's a different process in some ways. You're not fighting so much against that noise floor, generally speaking. It's not, the tape itself isn't making a sound, isn't creating a sound. So anyway, kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, so that's how I leave a gap at the end of my songs, is by just running any track. It could be any track that has no sound on it, basically, that's not making any sound, and just extending it for like 3 or 4 seconds after the end of the song. So then when it's mixed down, the song reads this as being part of the song and adds that 3 seconds of silence to the end of the song. Anyway. Okay, so here we go. And and I'm monitoring just by for ease of operation here. I could have set up a microphone and to actually record my voice, but I didn't do that. I'm just using this honestly kind of cheap set of headphones that are really like gaming headphones that have a microphone built into them, and they're certainly not the best for monitoring. So I really, I'm going to have to go back and mix this song through the monitors and my other recording headphones at some point. But it's good enough just for basic tracking here to get these things down and be able to do that. So we have our bass track there. Now just to show you how I put in these fades, like you see all those little white lines, those almost look like little tiny X's, little tiny X's in these orange guitar parts here. I'll just show you how I put those in. Now I did put that one in manually already at the beginning here, but I'll show you I can do this whole bass part now that I've had to cut it up a little bit. There's a section there that's been cut. So just to get those fades in, I just select all of these. I have the time bar, the now time selector put right in between right on top of where there's a split. Okay, where there's a split there. And then watch when I stretch this out, I'll stretch it out to 128 resolution, 128th note resolution. And then I just drag in these fades on each side here, like that. I just added a fade at the end of this one and at the beginning of this one because there's a split there. So when I shrink this down, because I had all of those selected, just this is the way this DAW works. It put in the fades through the rest of it at all the beginning and end points. You can see them, they look black right now. When I click here, watch, they'll turn white. Bam, there they are. There's the one at the end there. It put in all the other ones. Because I had them all selected like this at once. Whoops. See how that's kind of highlighted now? When I did just one on each side of this, it added them on all the other ones. That's how I go about doing that anyway. So there we have a bass part there. And let's see. I generally don't do a lot of EQing with bass. Sometimes I will. If I feel like the bass drum and the bass are battling, and this is something I'm not going to be able to decipher on these headphones, but if I feel like they're battling for that low end frequency, sometimes I'll cut a little off the bass and leave the ultra low end for the bass drum. That's my normal approach. I've done it the other way, and I think generally I don't find that as pleasing. I'm generally okay with hearing the bass a little thinner sounding and letting the kick drum kind of fill in that ultra low frequency. But you don't always hear that. I mean, am I hearing it now? I mean, again, it's going to be really hard to tell through these, basically impossible through these headphones, but I'm just going to give it a quick listen here. It's, again, these headphones are not going to give me a true image of what's happening here, but it's not horrible just even listening through these right now. It is a little bit muddy for my taste, but again, I'll have to listen to that on the monitors of my other headphones to get a closer to true idea of what's happening there. So I have that in there. What else can I talk about here? Let's see. I don't know. Let's see. I thought about possibly putting some kind of sound effect or something on this part here, where there's just these two guitar parts playing. I don't know, just maybe something there. I'm not sure what. Maybe like a riser, which is a sound effect that's basically, I believe it's derived from dubstep, which is this. I have this right here. Sweeps up. Let's see, does it say risers here? This is the same thing basically. So here are some of these sound effects that I'm thinking of. I'll audition some of them here. Some of them are real long and gradual, like this one, I think. But the thing is that I can cut them any way I want. I don't have to use the whole sample. Kind of neat. It's a little bit shorter than I was, but I do kind of like it. That's kind of interesting too. So How's that one? Let me try this one. Maybe I'll start it here. So what I do is I'm just going to drag and drop that in here, right where I want it to start. And now that little bit, it's just audio. It's just a recorded audio is dropped in there, and I can see from here it's going further than I want it to. I want it to end right there when the bass comes in, basically. So I'm going to drag it up to that point, or as close to it as I can get. Let's see if I increase my resolution here. I might be able to. There we go. Get it to butt up right against that line, which is where I want it to end. And I got to make sure I have the volume turned down, because these are always pretty loud generally. And let's hear what it sounds like. That's kind of interesting. Might actually be able to turn it up a little bit. Let's see. Again, I'm not relying on these headphones to give me a really great mix here, but yeah, that's kind of cool. Just something a little trippy there for a little added interest, hopefully. One more time. Yeah, I like that. That's kind of cool. So we got that added in. What else can we do here? I'm eventually going to probably write some lyrics here. Of course, I won't. I won't bring you along on that, I don't think. I suppose it could be interesting, but that can be time-consuming and or possibly kind of boring or something, I suppose. So let's see. Let's look at this whole song here. Again, squinching it down there. And again, when I stretch this, either way that I stretch it, I can stretch it, make it longer or shorter, or I can go taller or thinner. I can go really thin. Look at that. How everything's just really thin. That doesn't affect the sound of it at all. That's just the visual representation of the waveforms and the MIDI data. It doesn't affect the sound of it at all. And actually, if I go on here and I just press F, it fits. F stands for fit. It fits everything right into however large this pane is, this area. Because you can change the size of this area by just grabbing this and pulling it down. See, now there's more room there. Now if I press F, watch. Whoops, I was on the wrong one. Now it fits it to that. It fits it to whatever size it's open to. So let's get back. That's a little too high. I like it just, I think right there. Nope, that's not it either. Yeah, right in there is fine for now. I think I did something down here that I didn't want to do though. Let me see. What did I do? I opened this. I don't want that open. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway. Trying to think of what else I can do. I'd like to keep these segments about the same length, and I'm sorry for not being as prepared as I could be here in terms of what I'm going to be doing, but honestly, there's so much stuff I could show you. I just don't know what would be necessarily the most viable parts to show here. Let's see. What else is interesting to look at? We looked at the limiter. Oh no, let me see something here. What else can I show? There's different things here, like this is, you can save individual points in the mix to what they call scenes or mix recalls, and all that is like it takes a snapshot of the entire session when you save these. So like say later on down the road I've moved my faders around and gotten a different mix, and I think, you know what, I'm not sure if I like this as much as what I was doing earlier. I can go back to that scene in Mix Recall and just click on it, and it instantly snaps everything back to where it was when I saved that. So all the fader settings will be the same. Any of the anything, literally the whole session, any plugins that I'm using, like any of these. If I've changed settings on these, if I've moved these knobs or pressed a button or whatever, it all reverts back to where it was when you saved it, which is really nice, actually. And let me see here. I believe I've kind of showed these other. I could show some of these plugins. I mean, I don't know how interesting that is, but these are instruments, the effects. Let's see. What could be interesting here? Just a lot of, these are just all compressors here. This is an emulation of a famous compressor, the CA2A. Let's see, I'll drag it in here. This I think this is the one. This is an emulation, I believe, of the LA2A, which is a famous compressor. Supposedly it works really good with bass. I don't know that I've ever used it because I use the one in the channel strip. I think this is called the what is the name of this in this DAW? It's the Pro something, the Pro channel or something. I can't remember at the moment. But like if I click on bass here, boom, I'm using this compressor that's at the top here, this one, which is on that channel. It's on the bass channel. But I could use this as a plug-in, and this is just, like I said, it's an emulation of a famous studio piece of hardware called the LA2A compressor. But I don't think I'm going to use that. In fact, I'm just going to. And there's other ones here. This is another one. I believe this is. Let me see. I believe this is. I believe Chris Lord Alge uses this, or one of these other ones. This is made by Focusrite, and it's just another compressor. I believe he uses this like maybe on the master bus or something, much like I'm using this brick wall limiter here. That's a different compressor there. And I don't know if I have an 1176. It'd be kind of shocking if I didn't. P64 multi-man expander key. I guess I don't. What is this one? Let me see. I don't even know what this one is offhand. I don't know. I haven't used that one. I think that's a Cakewalk, who is the company that makes this DAW. That's one of theirs. I guess, shocking. I guess I don't have an 1176. Does this come with one? I wonder. Can you add one here, maybe? Let's see, what do we have here? There's the CA2A. No. Yes. Huh. I know Pro Tools comes with a 1176 emulation. I guess this doesn't. I thought it did, but evidently wrong here. Yeah, I don't see one in there. Very famous, if not the most famous compressor, I think. The 1176. But, what is this? Channel strip. Oh yeah, I use these on I use that on vocals sometimes. Categorized. What's in here? 1973. There's some really weird. There's some really strange effects in here that do some really strange stuff, like Gosh, can I even remember? I think these glitch ones and tape stop do some weird things. Like this one will make it sound like a tape slowing down. Like maybe if a battery died in a cassette player or something and the tape just goes, "Ew." It emulates that. And just other stuff, strange stuff. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent here, but I did want to try to keep these about the same length. I guess maybe that's, not sure that's a good thing necessarily, but yeah. There's so many different little things, many of which I don't even know in these DAWs, but I find my way around them enough to, I don't know, to be able to use them at least. What else do we have here? Is there anything else I could show? Could always just edit this out, I guess. It would be, this is a very interesting plug-in, this Melodyne thing. Well, essentially what it's used for is correcting vocals, and it can correct instruments too to some degree, like single notes. I believe it can even affect chords in some ways. I haven't used that, but say you have a vocal part and you notice a couple parts are a little flat or a little sharp or whatever, maybe even down to like the amount of vibrato that was being used. You can actually go in and use this plugin, and is it absolutely perfect? No. I mean, you can even do things with it like copy a piece of a vocal and raise the pitches of the individual notes that were sung and create a harmony part or multiple harmony parts. Now it starts sounding a little artificial to my ear often when I do that, so I don't use that too often, but I will use it sometimes to correct little glitches or things in a vocal part, because if it's something that's not too drastic, especially, it's pretty good. I don't think you would necessarily notice that it had even been affected. It's pretty good at like bringing a note onto pitch if it's just a little bit off or something. But maybe I'll show that after we do a vocal here or something. But I don't think I need to break that out right now. It'd be more informative when you actually have something like a vocal track to put into it anyway. You can see how the notes are displayed and manipulated that way. Let's see. That might be it for now. Did my bass part. So we got drums, 2 guitars, and our bass part now. And this little thing that I put at the beginning, which is just a little sample there. So we got the working basis of the song here going now. We can decide what we want to add to it in terms of there's going to be a vocal part, but I mean, you could add keyboards, even other guitar parts, little fill parts or something. Another thing that's cool about these is everything is what they call automatable, or can be automated. Maybe that's not the right word. Maybe automated would be the right word. But like for instance, I'll show you this real quick. This will be the last thing I do here for this session. I can go into this guitar part. Let's say I'll stretch it out here. Say I wanted. This is the right guitar. Say I wanted that to fade in rather than just hear how I'll solo it, so all you're hearing is that track, this guitar track. So say instead of just having it start like that, I wanted it to fade in. I could do what's called an automation move here. This is, of course, this button opens what's called the automation lane. And there are a lot of different parameters that you can adjust here. Almost anything, really, that's on this track. Any of the effects, the volume, the pan. And this is volume. And what it is this green line here is now our volume. So it is set in reference to where this fader is set. This guitar right fader, which is set near 12. Oh, it's on 10, minus 10. So that's what that line, green line right there represents. You can even see when I'm holding that on there, it displays that little window with minus 10 dB. Now, if I can put what's called nodes just by clicking on there, it puts, I don't even know if you're able to see that, but it puts a little circle there. Now I'm going to put another one here and another one right at the end of this. I'm just going to do this as an example. Now what I can do is I've got 3 nodes there. What they're doing is you can almost imagine them like being little gears. They allow you to manipulate this line. So what happens if I pull on this little node, see how it made a slope there now? So what's happening, and look at the volume fader now where it is. It went all the way down to the bottom. So what's happening now is if we start this here, now see now this snap back up because over here the green line is still at minus 10 dB. But when it gets to this point, what do you think is going to happen? Watch this fader and you'll see what happens. So did you see that? It dropped all the way down, just like the line did, to 0, and then it gradually brought the volume up back up to minus 10. And that's called automation. I've now automated that fader. Every time I play this back now, it'll do that. And I can even hide that lane so you can't see it, but it's still there. See if we open it again, it's there. And it's just going to, every time we play this, that fader is going to drop down and then gradually come back up as if you were physically manipulating it with your hand on a mixing board. And if you can imagine, anything in here can be automated. Like if I had a compressor plug-in on here, I could automate if I wanted to change the attack, I could automate changing of the attack. If I had a reverb plug-in, I could automate how much reverb I want. I could have it change, as if you were physically turning a knob as the song progressed. It's crazy all the things you can do with automation. And I think I'm going to delete these. And these, I guess I'll delete them. I don't really have to, but back to just a straight line there. So now it's just back to 10 where it was. See, it won't drop down now. It'll just start like it did before. No automation there now. We removed it. So that's an interesting thing that's, can be very in-depth. I mean, you can have, lots of plugins on a track, all kinds of these different compressors and EQs and whatever, distortions. You could have, I've seen people have, I don't know, anywhere between 6 and 10 plugins on a single track. I'm sure some people probably even use more than that, but I always use a minimum, as few as I can, because I mean there's a lot of processing going on. Like with the guitars, they're going through all this processing before they even are recorded. I'm recording them with distortion and sometimes reverb and whatnot, so those effects are already going in. And then the bass is not something I like to use a lot of effect on. Like I said, I use as you saw me use the compressor here on it. That's generally all I use on a bass is a compressor. And it's got, again, from this thing, it had some head emulation of this, like what I believe is an Ampeg head, and all the mic emulation and the cabinet emulation. That was all recorded into this. So you already have all those effects recorded in, and I'm just not, I don't know. I don't like using a whole lot of They also eat up CPU power. I've never really run into a problem with it myself in this program. This program was made specifically for Windows and seems to run really well. This window right here actually is showing you how much our CPU is being used. 2.26% of our CPU is being used by this program. And I have a 6-core it's an older processor now, but it's a 6-core 12-thread processor, and I've never overtaxed it with this program, but you can by adding multiple plugins. Those are things that eat up CPU power and whatnot. And anyway, I think I'm going to end here for now. I hope this part wasn't too boring. I know I kind of got stuck there a couple times, but anyway, I am just kind of doing this off the cuff here, so I hope it was informative and enjoyable, and thanks for watching and listening. See you next time.